listening to The Tom Daniel Show, and I'm your host, Tom Daniel. Okay, today I'm just all stirred up. I want to jump into something that, well, on the surface seems like total common sense, but all of that common sense just dissolves as soon as you bring in the internet. And I'm talking about the fair use doctrine of U.S. copyright law. Hey, wake up. You've already gone to sleep on me. Get some coffee or something. I want to talk about how the fair use doctrine applies reasonably well to everything imaginable in an educational approach, except music. I want to reveal some pretty surprising contradictions and look at the friction points between traditional academic freedom and the hard reality of the internet. And I will provide a full disclosure of all my musical practices here on The Tom Daniel Show to show how I navigate through all this confusion. Recently, my wife and I had lunch with a friend who told us all about a podcast that he follows about trees. Trees! I mean, it really sounded interesting because he described the show's creator as someone incredibly knowledgeable and passionate about trees and wood. And later, I searched for the channel and I was stunned to find that there must be hundreds of podcasts dedicated to trees. Who knew? I also have a colleague who has some amazing insights into Southern history, and he hosts a very successful podcast about it. Now, in his podcast, he regularly reads verbatim from copyrighted and published historical documents, and nobody says a thing. I mean, he can give a scholarly presentation at an academic conference, take the video of that presentation, and upload it immediately to the internet to reach a wider audience. He could even point a camera at himself in his classroom and record any of his lectures, and then post them straight to the internet. All of that is accepted standard practice, and he rightfully exploits every nuance of it on the good old information superhighway. Not me. Nope. I've managed to become passionate about one of the few things still not allowed on the internet: copyrighted and published music. Music is treated differently on the internet. For academic purposes, music that isn't original and freshly composed on the spot is essentially banned. And if you try to get away with it, you get lots of grumpy letters from grumpy lawyers. Now, in my classroom on campus, I might show a student how to improvise a solo to a particular chord progression by playing recordings of Sonny Rollins or Jim Hall doing the same thing, and then making comparisons. Now, even though both versions that I use are copyrighted and published, I'm granted academic freedom to use them in my classroom for scholarly purposes. See, this is commonly referred to as the fair use doctrine of copyright law, and it's encoded as Section 107 of Title 17 of U.S. law. Although some laws are definitely confusing little head-scratchers, this one's pretty straightforward and based on simple common sense. If you need to teach someone about a song, you're allowed to use the song. I mean, it doesn't get more basic than that. Now, this doctrine came about due to the hard work of a lady from Keokuk, Iowa, named Frances Elliott Clark, who was a pioneering advocate over 100 years ago for the use of the record player in the classroom to teach music. She correctly recognized that music teachers must be allowed to use the most advanced technology available for instructional purposes. In her lifetime, the record player was the most advanced technology available, and she was a mighty advocate for its use in teaching music. All music teachers owe a lot to Frances Elliott Clark. And as technology progressed to give us tapes, CDs, digital downloads, so did the law, which became the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It was her incredible foresight that allowed the law to easily adapt to advancing technology. But this law only works if everybody acts reasonably. Now, for example, if my division chair or my dean came to me and questioned the legality of me using copyrighted recordings in my classroom, I would quote the fair use doctrine to support my position. And then my division chair or my dean would probably respond with, okay, thanks for telling me that. I see your point. Carry on. See, that would be a reasonable reaction. The internet does not react reasonably. If I uploaded a podcast episode that exactly mirrored the totally legal class I just described above, within about 8 seconds of going public, I'd get an email from all of my podcast hosts telling me they'd taken down the episode because it included copyrighted material. Period. End of discussion. I'm not even allowed the opportunity to explain my position because as far as the internet is concerned, I don't get a position. All of the major music publishers in the U.S., such as Universal, Sony, Warner, etc., have the only position on the matter, and that position is, take it down right now. I could try to appeal, but the hosting sites would turn to Universal, Sony, and Warner to arbitrate the appeal, and guess which way they're going to rule? Well, shockingly, they rule 100% of the time in their own favor. I did not see that coming. Now, legally, I could take it to court. But there are wealthy podcasters out there who've looked at the situation and decided the cost just isn't worth it. Now, if they can't afford to fight it, I can't. Additionally, the actual musicians themselves have no say in this process at all. Some musicians are totally fine with their copyrighted material being used educationally, but they don't get to overrule their own publishing company. If Universal Music Group says it comes down, then it comes down. There are plenty of obscure or forgotten artists who would love for someone to use their music educationally and give them exposure to a whole new generation of fans. But the music publishers don't see it that way at all. Sadly, there are also plenty of artists who totally agree with the mercenary efforts of the publishing companies, and they are strong advocates of internet retribution. These artists are known in the music community as blockers because they go to extreme lengths to prevent their music from being used online, and it includes such groups as the Eagles, the Beatles, and AC/DC. It's gotten so bad that if I recorded myself playing the intro to Hotel California, the Eagles would block me faster than I could stab them with my steely knives. No explanation, no appeal, blocked. I've seen a pretty comical video on YouTube where a musician recorded himself playing Hotel California with all the wrong chords on purpose just to sneak it past the Eagles. And yet he still got blocked because he inadvertently said the name of the song out loud in the video. They blocked him. That's just messed up. Now, to be fair, lawyers did not create this situation. Lawyers are just paid to act on behalf of some clients with some very questionable common sense. So I'm not mad at lawyers here. When we come back, we'll talk about what's behind the motivation for all these musicians to become blockers. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show. We'll be right back.
What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show. What are you waiting for? The Tom Daniels Show.
Welcome back to The Tom Daniels Show. And man, even when it's not an exciting topic, Mary Mac still electrifies. Way to go. Mary Mac is the world's most perfect band. Now, we've been talking about the fair use doctrine and how music publishing companies viciously keep music off the internet, even for educational purposes. Now, the reason I'm so fired up about this topic is because my content here on The Tom Daniels Show is greatly affected by all this. There are some really great topics out there for episode ideas that I have to completely reject because there's just no way for me to do it without using examples of recorded music. I could easily do it in a classroom, I just can't do it on the internet. Of course, the one and only motivation for this nonsense is money. The Eagles don't want you making money off of their songs. Podcasts with large audiences can be monetized so that the hosting site pays the host a few cents each time the episode is accessed by someone. Now, the Tom Daniels Show, although I do consider it to be successful, it's not monetized because the audience is nowhere close to being large enough. Well, maybe one day. Anyway, for the monetized podcast, it could add up to a whopping $20 per episode. Wow. And yet the Eagles believe you shouldn't get that $20, so either take that song out of the podcast, take down the entire episode, or hire a lawyer because you're going to court. But it's not like you get to be an insurrectionist and defy everyone by just posting that episode anyway in defiance of all the threats. Nope, the podcast hosting site simply takes it down for you. I mean, it is their platform after all, and your treasonous act never even gets that far. Now, here's the part I don't understand. If a podcast episode causes 1,000 people to go out and start buying music by the Eagles for the first time, isn't that a net win for the Eagles in the long run? Shouldn't they want a new generation of fans to appreciate and consume their music? And wouldn't that be worth the doggone $20 you get out of it? I mean, it's not like the $20 is coming out of their pockets. According to the Eagles, no, it's not worth it. You don't even get 2 cents off their music, so draw back a nub. Ultimately, what all this means is that history people can post their documents on the internet. Writers and painters can post novels and paintings on the internet, and even tree people can post their woodpile on the internet, but I can't. Under no circumstances am I allowed to teach anybody how to play the intro to Thunderstruck or the alto break on A Night in Tunisia. There was a time when I launched 2 different instructional academies for online music instruction. The first one was called the Southern Academy of Music and was hosted on an instructional site called Udemy. They stripped down almost all of my material immediately after launch. The only 2 videos of mine that they allowed to remain were 2 short videos teaching people how to tune a sour note on the piano without calling it a piano tuner. I did play the opening phrase of the Blue Danube Waltz on the piano in one of the videos, but that's in the public domain, so they couldn't stop me for that. Now, to this day, those 2 piano tuning videos are still on their platform, and they earn me a whopping $40 a year. The second online instructional platform was called the Academy of Southern Music. I just flipped the name. And many of the topics I've covered in the Tom Daniels Show were originally developed for the Academy of Southern Music. And then, of course, the host platform made me take everything down. I'm pretty sure they didn't act out of a knowledge of the law. More correctly, they acted out of a fear of someone else acting against them. Mr. Daniel, we have no idea if what you're doing is legal or not, but we're taking everything down anyway just to avoid a fight. Have a nice day. I'm sorry, what's that? Appeal? Oh, that's a good one. Do you know any knock-knock jokes, too? A ton of work and time was put into creating and organizing all that material, recording it, editing it, posting it. And yet it was all taken down in an instant. As far as I know, my empty platform is still technically available out there somewhere, but it's a ghost town because there's nothing there. I have heard a particular legal argument in defense of the blockers by suggesting that since they wrote, copyrighted, and published the music in question, then of course they should be the only entity to profit from it. In other words, I shouldn't get paid if I'm using their protected material to earn money for myself. So if that's the correct position, then explain to me how come I keep getting paid for being a music teacher. That's the basis of every single paycheck I've ever received as a classroom music teacher. I've used other people's copyrighted material to teach music for over 40 years, and I got paid for it. It's the same thing, y'all. Exact same thing. Wait, you say. One of those examples is inside an actual classroom in a proper educational setting, and the other is just on the internet where people just sit on the couch and learn. Clearly, that's the difference. But that's why Frances Elliott Clark of Keokuk, Iowa, is still as important today as 100 years ago. In her lifetime, it was a reality that the only way to hear music was to attend a live performance. The invention of a new piece of technology called a record player meant that anyone could hear captured and stored music anytime, anywhere. Instead of having to go to a proper setting to hear music, a student could just sit at their desks and learn. It was her argument that education is not only allowed, but required to keep up with advancing technology. Otherwise, what is the point? As I explained earlier, technology definitely progressed beyond the record player to give us tapes, CDs, and digital downloads, and so did the law, which became the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. The law always managed to keep up properly with technology, at least until the internet showed up. That's when music education came to a screeching halt and got knocked back to the dark ages. Every other topic is allowed to use advancing technology in education except music. History can do it. An English teacher could read directly from a Truman Capote novel. Nobody bats an eye. Biology, math, nursing, heck, even trees. But not music. I still don't get it. Therefore, since I've been around the block a time or two here, let me tell you how I do the Tom Daniels Show and how we handled all that nonsense. Now, first of all, I wrote my own theme song and copyrighted it, so it belongs to me. Therefore, my band Mary Mac has my permission to freely change up the theme song each episode as they create new versions for each one. As long as they use the same words, I don't care how they embellish the melody and the harmony. And since I own it, I'm the only one that matters. Also, any incidental music provided by Mary Mac in certain episodes was also written and copyrighted by me. Now, if I ever use a recording of music that's not mine, which I have done a few times, then I make sure it's in the public domain, and anyone may freely use it without involving a single lawyer. Public domain means that not only has the copyright expired, but the publishing rights for that particular recording have also expired. You have to cover both. See, although Beethoven's Fifth Symphony is definitely in the public domain, Beethoven's been gone a long time, a recording of the Fifth Symphony made in 1940 is not in the public domain because that recording is still covered under publishing rights, which last 100 years. Therefore, unless the owner of a recording specifically indicates that recording to be in the public domain, then it's not in the public domain unless it was recorded sometime before the early 1920s. The few times I've used recordings of other people, it was because the recordings were ancient and in the public domain, or I had acquired permission to use them. It's a ton of extra work just to be able to teach people about music online. A huge hurdle. In a classroom, I've never had to do any of that, not once. Only online. So to wrap this up, I've tried to show how complicated and honestly frustrating this whole fair use situation is for online instruction of music. What is simple common sense in a physical classroom just hits a brick wall on the internet. The fair use doctrine was created with good intentions to support education, creativity, and scholarship. But you have to ask, does the way it's currently applied to online music instruction serve that original purpose? Or is it accidentally choking off innovation and maybe limiting how a whole new generation connects with and learns about music history and technique? It really leaves you wondering about what stands out more importantly in that balancing act between protecting rights and fostering progress. Thank you, everybody. This has been the Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning.
Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Take a break from your usual routine and tune in to the Tom Daniels Show. You'll discover the world